You just take a social anxiety. Yeah, social anxiety is fundamentally a fear of what might happen in a given social situation. But if you are, for example, non-tyrannical with yourself, your view of yourself will be positive. You'll look at yourself and say, you know, I'm a decent human being and people would like to meet me. You know, I'm a valuable human being, I'm a, you know, worthwhile human being, and you've not spent the last 20 years beating yourself up. You're looking after yourself and you value yourself, and you walk into a situation and there's no thought that people wouldn't value you, that people wouldn't like to meet you, because you don't think that way. You think in a healthy, positive way. You know, I'm a valid human being. Yeah, you're not beating yourself up, you're not tyrannical, and you don't believe then others will be tyrannical towards you either. You're not projecting your negative thoughts about yourself onto them. Okay, because this is what happens. You project your abusiveness into your environment and then believe your environment's being abusive, when in actual fact it's you. Okay, so yeah. All sorts of anxieties can be resolved by it. Look for the balance between the masculine and the feminine archetypes within yourself, and I mean the positive side of it. But you mustn't pretend the negatives don't exist. The negative side of the archetype does exist. It is fundamentally unavoidable. Would you agree? Negative side of the archetypes exist and it's unavoidable. Yeah, they're unavoidable. They come together. Both sides exist. You can look in fairy stories to tell you this. Most, one of my favourites, Hansel and Gretel. Great examples of the positive and negative maternal and paternal archetypes. Really, really great for that. And they exist. And the question is, how do you recognise each, promote one and manage the other? You're never going to be able to say the other one does not exist in me, because it is what it is. It is an archetype. It has two sides. It comes down to which one are you acting on. Are you acting on the negative aspects of the archetype or the positive aspect? And it is your action that counts. Sorry, up here again. It is your action that counts. So think of this. I know this has been a long ramble, and I apologise, but fundamentally this is how you resolve anxiety. You know, it's worth talking about. It's one of the major problems society faces, and it's quite simple to resolve. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. I'm saying it's quite a simple thing to understand. For me, if I'm helping people, there's no point in having a complex idea followed by a complex solution. What you want is one of those things to be simple. Now, I can't make the solution, the work, simple. So what I try to do is make an understanding of the issue, how you resolve it, simple. The work is down to you. You've got to work at it. It is a difficult process. So that's where it goes. It's a difficult process and you've got to work on it. Pardon me. So there you go. There is another side to this, and I may do that in a little while, because it relates to something that happened last night. But yeah, I hope that this is useful. I also want to say that, sorry for not posting these up onto the internet so quickly as I might. Oops, Suzanne's calling. I'm going to go now. Okay, back to a rambling process. And we are rambling. We're ramblers walking. Yeah, back to a rambling process of how you get rid of your anxiety. So, let's say, for instance, you have an absent feminine and a tyrannical masculine ruling your life. Yeah, so in your mind you beat yourself up a lot, you pull yourself down, you don't give yourself space, but also there's no care, there's no anything really. The other way could be, obviously, you're overindulgent, you take drugs and things like that to compensate for the tyranny. But let's say you just take it, for instance, just where there's an absent feminine and a tyrannical masculine. Okay, so as Suzanne and I were just discussing, it's a transformative process. You're not going to be able to just abandon these ideas, these archetypes. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, it has to be a transformative process. So you have to, in this case, you've got an absent feminine and a tyrannical masculine. You have to engender a feminine that can transform the masculine into more structure, yes, and support than tyranny. And maybe that, tyranny and that understanding of tyranny came from your childhood, so you may not really understand that fully, but you can start to work on it. You're looking for, we're going through a tunnel, we're going to echo. You're looking for the nurturer, yes, transforming the tyrant. So you want to import and engender a nurturer. Yeah, would you go with that?
Yeah.
So that in the case of an absent feminine and tyrannical masculine, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for.
Sorry, I've just got a stoning issue.
Oh, we're going to stop here. 1 second. We'll start over in this again.
I'm talking. Just
No.
hold my stick.
Okay, I'm talking, rambling. So that's the first one, let's say. An alternative would be, let's say you have a tyrannical masculine and you have a compensatory feminine, yeah, an overindulgent feminine. Let's say you overeat to compensate for it, or you take drugs to compensate for it, or you drink alcohol, whatever it is you're doing to compensate for the tyrannical masculine. What would you do? What do you think? Darling, this is, just put it on your...
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Thank you. Tyrannical masculine and compensatory feminine, overindulgent. What do you do? Transformational process. On the fly.
On the fly, you need structure.
But the structure is tyrannical.
But you need an amount of structure to combat the chaos. And you need to have a bit of willpower, don't you?
Okay.
To resist all the chaotic urges.
So you've got to overcome the chaotic impulses from the feminine, yes,
Yes.
and have nurture.
Yes.
And you've got to, what about the tyrant? You've got to shut the tyrant up, basically, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to step back from the tyrant and say no to tyranny. So it's a little bit more difficult with those two as a combination, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yes, it is, but that's a really common combination.
It is, yes. Well, it's what most addicts have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And structure, but healthy structure and boundaries is basically what you're looking for. So
9K.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9K in a blazing sunshine. Okay, go this for a second. Oh, back again. Yeah. That actually is the structure for most addicts, isn't it? Tyrannical masculine, chaotic feminine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compensatory feminine, overindulgent feminine, plus abusive masculine. So what they do is they feel bad, beat the crap out of themselves, then they compensate through either eating or drinking or taking drugs, and then they feel bad about eating and they feel bad about drinking and they feel bad taking drugs, so they beat themselves up, and around and around and around and around and around and around. There has to be a way around that, and kindness, yes, tolerance, peace, voila. Step away from the tyranny. I think the beginning would be step away from the tyranny. If you overeat or whatever, yes, or take drugs, don't beat yourself up. Just stop. It doesn't help. First stop that shit. Excuse my language, but stop that. Okay? First stop that. Because then if you stop beating yourself up, you haven't got that much to compensate for. So then you're just stuck with the indulgent side of the addiction, as opposed to it being compensatory. So remove the thing you're compensating for, I think. Yeah, stop beating yourself up. Try and treat yourself a little bit better. Yeah, engage in the nurture again. I think it's the nurturer that gets rid of the tyrannic and masculine, yeah?
Yeah.
So kindness, generosity, engage with that, yeah? Forget about the compensatory bit for the minute, the overindulgence. Deal with the tyrant. Once you've dealt with the tyrant, yeah, then you can deal with the overindulgent. So I would go deal with it in that direction. So those two dealt with. Okay, I can try and get through a few more. Suzanne just accused me of not being very present with the walk, so I'm just going to finish this one off. Okay, the overindulgent, compensatory feminine, and the tyrannical masculine. If you can bring in some feminine that gets rid of the tyrant, as in you stop listening to that stuff, yes, then as I said, the feminine is just compensatory for nothing. But once you've got rid of the tyrannical masculine, you can then bring in the healthy masculine, which will offer boundaries and the ability to say no. So you kind of swing it one way, then swing it back again. So you clean up the masculine, and then you can utilise the masculine to clean up the feminine. Okay, and maybe that's why we are brought up the way we are. We tend to be brought up by the feminine first, and then the masculine. Yeah, so you use the feminine to resolve the negative masculine, and then you use the masculine to resolve the negative feminine in this case. I'm not going to say it in all ways, but I'm going to stop talking about this now because I want to engage with my walk, because it is lovely here and it is so hot. It is so hot. Yeah, so just think about it. So if you're an addict, or you know an addict, think of it in this way. Yeah, there's a tyrant and there's compensatory overindulgence. Get rid of the tyrant, then use the masculine to provide structure to overcome the addiction. Okay? Just trying to show you the path ahead of us. A bit of wind, as you can see from all the dust. There are 4 people ahead, 1 person behind. We're pretty much alone in this environment, but it's really lovely. Just look at the colours. Suzanne crunch on by. And there are people. There's people over there. There you go. Yeah, just hot. Flat but hot. Just look at that. Sorry? I can't hear.
The mountains.
Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Mm.
And it is this one because there's the church
There's the church up there.
on the hill. So we are where we thought we were. Isn't this gorgeous? We've arrived. Bit of town. Sorry?